Welcome to the Nerd Party.
That's right, you're here on Houselights in the Wing of Bond as we continue our exploration of James Bond movies, broken out by directors in pairings of when they worked with two different Bonds and what the results were when they would switch from one Bond to another. And so this week, of course, we're looking at our second Guy Hamilton picture, which is The Man with the Golden Gun, where he trades up for Roger Moore from Sean Connery, and we will see whether the phrase trade up is accurate or not.
Whoa. Fighting words right off the bat.
Jeez. There you go. That's what I do.
Wow.
Be that as it may, I am here. You've already heard them chime in with my two most trusty co-hosts. First and foremost, the elite gunsmith and fabricator, Dr. Sci-Fi himself, Darren Moser, and, of course, everybody's favorite Southern Sheriff, J.W. Tristan Riddell. Thank you, both of you. Welcome to our discussion of The Man with the Golden Gun.
Some people say you shouldn't manufacture bullets in, U.S. standard units, but apparently I just don't like millimeters that much. So,
hey, it makes sense. I would also argue that gold, I don't know.
It's a terrible thing for a bullet.
It's not really the best thing that you could use in that circumstance. But at least we have Tristan here to keep us on the straight and narrow and try to apply, his knowledge of American law, no matter the locale, as he goes through.
You had to give me J.W. Pepper. You couldn't have given me Knick-Knack, Scaramanga. Nope. I would have even taken Goodnight. Nope. Had to give me the friggin' racist Southern Sheriff.
Well, what was that? Because that was like, am I watching the same Bond movie? Because all of a sudden, like, am I supposed to know who this is? Because it makes me think of like Jimbo. Because we see Jimbo.
We saw him in Live and Let Die.
In Live and Let Die.
Oh, okay.
And and that's one of the things that fascinates me most as we start this discussion about The Man with the Golden Gun. Before we get into our customary opening questions and everything, I'm just going to throw it out there that I think The Man with the Golden Gun is a terrific example, and it's not the first or the last time you see it in the Bond series, of what a warning it is to try to put together a connected universe sort of thing going on, especially if you don't realize that people absolutely hated the character from the previous movie that you chose to bring back. Kind of crazy. But
except for Q. As long as Q is the thread that can work, I would say.
Oh, right. Yes, but you have certain pitfalls you're going to go into.
That's the one gimmick. And then after that, yeah.
I would even argue...
Moneypenny.
I get you willfully missed the point. Thank you. I think that's a good one. Please lean into that. But I think that
his name is James in every movie. Like they keep that going.
Yes. When you're going through and you're trying to put together the ancillary stuff on the side. You have your core stuff that carries through, but then you decide to bring back J.W. Pepper from Live and Let Die. I don't know how anybody could have watched Live and Let Die and said, that's the one. That's the guy we got to bring back. That's the side character that people would care about.
We need more of a Smokey and the Bandit feel for this. Because seriously, I
didn't. And also, like, when they do the car flip, turn, corkscrew, could we put the Confederate flag on top of the car?
If the whistle wasn't enough, because that was,
Okay. So obviously we're already going down the negative pathway here with The Man with the Golden Gun. So let's pull it back.
The flying car, we're gonna dive bomb and then pull it out at the last minute and then talk about the good stuff.
We're gonna get this back on track and start with a more balanced look at what I think is an important Bond film, because while it's not one of the more successful Bond films, it actually had a little bit of a struggle there and put the franchise on a partial pause. It did so poorly that I think that there are still great signs here. And I mean great in the sense of big flashing signs, not necessarily an adjective saying I think they're stupendous. But I think that The Man with the Golden Gun even more than Live and Let Die, points you in a direction that Moore's character is going to have to go going forward, both from good things that happen in this film, but also lessons that they learn about trying to make Moore do things that don't fit with his specific screen persona, his charisma, as it were. But I want to ask, obviously, Bond comes in, you watch different ones in different orders. It doesn't really matter what order you watch Bond movies in. People pick it up at different times. People come out to it at different points in their lives. Darren, at what point in the Bond familiarization process did you first encounter the man with the golden gun? Was this one where you saw the greatest hits and then just sort of like started cutting through them and you happened to get to this, or were you pointed toward this one by anybody?
It was probably one of those, like, because we owned it for a while. We had like a pack of Bond. Like, it wasn't the best. It was just like 10 Bond films kind of thrown together in those slim DVD cases, so we can pack more, for shipping. And I think, Man with the Golden Gun was there. Although, gosh, I'm reveling in your statement of this movie showing that Roger Moore should be on his way out. He did 5 more Bond movies after this one, so maybe it took him a while to get that memo. But I've always had a soft spot for the man with the golden gun. I think I love Christopher Lee. I think he's an amazing actor. I mean, I think it's universally praised that people liked his performance. Maybe there were more problems with the film in general, but I love I wish we had more Golden Gun. I love the scene where he puts it together as the guy is just chatting with him and then shoots him with. I want to see that. We needed like 3 more of those scenes or something, or him going on an airplane and he like checks all his things through the scanner, and we know, like, lean into that.
I really thought we were going to get an airplane scene with the when he assembled it together. It made me think about that Clint Eastwood film. I think it's In the Line of Duty or In the Line of Fire or something like that. And the bad guy like has like a plastic gun that he puts together like that, and that's how he gets through the metal detector.
Or the Next Generation episode where the Klingons assembled the disruptor from their belt buckles and like toe horns, which just. I think I love that. I don't feel it's a gimmick. I feel it's a cool, unique thing for that character. And I mean, granted, in the clinch, when like how fast can you assemble that gun? Like, obviously, he has it most of the time. It's his gun is assembled, but
actually, since we brought up airport stuff, Christopher Lee actually got that gun confiscated at the airport. Because he was going to bring it with him on a press tour, I think.
He was going to bring it on the Tonight Show.
The Tonight Show. That's
Customs was like, you can't come through with this. And I don't know
He's
how
like,
anybody says
prop.
no to. Yeah. I'm Christopher Lee. You will let this go through right now. Like, I don't understand how he does
waving your arms in front of us, Christopher Lee. Just
he should have known. He should have just disassembled. Because honestly, if he had disassembled it, it probably would have made it through.
Probably so.
I'm sure there's the one version that can disassemble, and then all the others were like solid. But
yeah, you're probably right. Yeah.
But it's you got the Dr. No-esque secret island lab that blows up. That's a fun Bond staple. You got the eccentric sidekick Knick-Knack on loan from Khan for a moment.
Well, but the thing is, Knick-Knack, of course, you might look at certain aspects of the character differently nowadays, obviously. But Hervé Villechaize, he was, at the time, according to, what I've read, he was actually living out of his car before he got cast in this role. So this role turned his entire life around.
Was this prior to Fantasy Island?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it was. Yeah. So this put him on the map.
Put him on the map.
And while obviously the types of roles he was going to be offered were rather limited, especially at the time, at the very least it was something that got him. This sort of jump started his career, as it were. So you can. I would prefer to look at it from the positive point of view with that sort of thing. But But Tristan, what about you? Was Golden Gun one that maybe your dad steered away from and said, "Yeah, we can get to that. We can get to that," or was he excited to show Golden Gun to you?
He never showed me Golden Gun.
Really?
Because the box set that we had was all of Sean Connery's films, and he just bought the ones that he liked of Roger Moore. Like, he didn't buy a complete box set. Like, he just, I think he got the Daltons. We of course like bought the Pierce Brosnan ones as they came out, and he just had a few Roger Moore ones because he didn't really like Roger Moore as Bond, and I don't like him either. And so he was never on fire with a Golden Gun. And I'm trying to think of a time when I sat down to watch it from beginning to end, and I don't think I ever have.
So this would be your first time watching it from beginning to finish?
I think so. And if I have done it in the past, which I feel like I would have, because I mean, there was a time when I was just like consuming Bond movies, just watching them all the time, left and right. So I had to have done it, but I have no memory of it. And I just remember bits and pieces of it. So I think this would be my first watch all the way through.
Well, I can't wait to start peeling that onion a little bit more. But the reason I asked the question is this is still a film that's not well regarded in the Bond franchise overall. Contemporary reviews even were dropping the hint that maybe it's run its course here, and we don't really know what we're doing. Worldwide box office, it's still made over $97 million. But the U.S. box office, which of course, especially back then was the yardstick that everybody used, it brought in 21. So when you compare that just with what we were talking about Goldfinger a decade prior, that's stunning. That is an audience clearly saying to you, this is not the product that we want. You're not giving us what we're looking for here. And so that, they wind up and they go back and retool. Darren, I'll kick it to you first. As you watch this, is this something where you look at it, would you have considered this a franchise ender? Is this one that's so bad that you say, or can you plug into the idea of people reacting at the time of saying, no, we're done with this now. Maybe we should hang it up.
It's interesting because what I was most struck by was how off formula it felt. Like, we talked a ton last week about GoldenEye making this bang up formula, and we got pretty much none of that. The pacing was very different in this movie. We were here and then we were there, and now Bond's on the sidelines because he's got this death note on him, but apparently solar energy is really important. Like, it was a very all over the place compared to, and again, not that we have to compare every single thing to Goldfinger, but Goldfinger was just like boom, 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 and so well paced and so well storied. Yeah, I could see, I wouldn't say it's a franchise ender, but I do completely understand what actually happened with them saying, okay, let's pause. Let's decide what we want to do next, because we can't have like 2 or 3 of these missteps in a row and then we're done. So yeah, but there's a lot of great things, which I know we'll get to the great things, but there's a lot of things I do like about Man with the Golden Gun.
Well, they wanted to do Golden Gun earlier in the series. It actually wound up getting postponed initially because of the Vietnam War, I think, because they were going to, have locations there, and then the Vietnam conflict breaks out, and they decided to go in a different direction. I know that this was in contention to be the second film for Lazenby before he decided to leave. And so then it got scrapped. It got pushed back again. And basically, my question then to you, Tristan, is if they produce this earlier and Connery is in the role, do you think this works better with Connery? Or do you think that it's a Connery type movie and that's why it doesn't work as well with Moore in people's opinions?
I know I wouldn't go that far with what you said, where it's a Connery type role, because I think I know what you're getting at. Because in this one, in Goldfinger, Guy Hamilton specifically tried to shy away from the the type of character that Bond was and is in the books. Much rougher, a person you don't want to, be like, not the paragon of virtue and everything like that. But we see those kind of pop out every once in a while with Connery. Like every once in a while, like he'll use like in Goldfinger, like he took the woman and threw him in front of him to take the blow, and like he the stuff that we talked about last week with Pussy Galore and things like that. But there was a scene in this movie where he takes Maud Adams' character and puts her arm behind her back and threatens to break it. And he's really rough with her. Like, this is straight up, like, he smacks her. Like, this is violence towards women. And this was Guy Hamilton specifically trying to bring it back to the novel version of Bond. And he's gone on record saying that. And Roger Moore himself said that this was a mistake. I think he said it in his audio commentary on the DVD. He's like, I didn't want to do this. This didn't feel like the cinematic character. And he says the cinematic Bond would have charmed the information out of her. And I completely agree with Sir Roger Moore on this one. If I could put words in your mouth, I feel like it's because of moments like that where you feel like it's more a little Sean Connery, where you could see Sean Connery's Bond being a little rougher than Roger Moore. And I feel like they definitely do a course correction after this.
Right.
With Moore. And I feel like, not to jump ahead because I want to talk about this movie, but one of the reasons why I don't like Moore is because I feel like he's way too jokey. He's way too smirky. Like, he just kind of walks around and like every single thing out of his mouth is a joke. It's like if Marvel does a Bond film. And it's just, I don't like that about his Bond whatsoever. And so when you see him be rough and, show violence towards women and then like push the kid out of the boat, it just feels all wrong. It feels like a mishmash of what they're trying to accomplish with Bond. And I'm giving you a really, really long answer to answer your question. There is way more wrong with this film than Roger Moore's portrayal of Bond, where it's kind of novelization. It's a little cinematic. It's kind of jokey, but it's not as jokey as he gets. It feels very, very off. But even if Sean Connery was in this, say it was just Sean Connery's portrayal, but the editing, cinematography, pacing, everything was exactly the same except Sean Connery in the role, this movie would still have tons of problems because of the script and because of the pacing.
One thing that I do think is interesting about that one scene that you're talking about, where he grabs, Maud Adams' arm and puts it behind her, is, she has a gun on him. He slaps the gun out of her hand. And I'm still in it at that point. I'm like, somebody pulled a gun on you. Yeah, you got this arm, and you're a threat to me. I think what it is after a certain point, when it's one of those things where it starts off and you're like, yeah, I could see this, and then it goes on too long, and I think that gets to your pacing sort of thing. Is if you're judicious with it and you show Bond disarm her and then say, listen, you're obviously no threat to me. Let me talk it out with you. Know that you can't beat me, as opposed to really being overly rough, overly dominant in the scene. That I think that speaks to sort of that pacing thing that you're getting to. But you mentioned the cinematography, and Darren, there are 2 cinematographers listed on this film. Do you ever think that that's good news? Or do you think that spells bad news?
Well, I happen to know that it, because I saw it in the notes, that I think one fell ill and that someone stepped in his place, which I'm like, that makes sense. Like, that's a production issue. That's not as much of a, couldn't work with so-and-so and then they leave. But on the surface, yes, that doesn't seem to usually bode well for a picture when you're constantly changing key positions like that. But But now, so you're my Bond guy, John. So was George Lazenby considered for this role? Because
this was supposed to be George Lazenby played him in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and there's even when he was on the press tour for that, he talked about how this was going to be the next film. And obviously things fall apart with Lazenby, and they bring more on, and they decide to do Live and Let Die, which then pushes
after
this
Diamonds
further.
Are Forever, which were later. I guess that this time period of Bond seems strange to me because it's not like Connery played him, then it's kind of jumping back and forth a bit.
Yes, which
isn't a terrible thing. I think if you're kind of going for this, Bond is this ever character that can almost be played by anybody. It's a good idea to shuffle it more rather than, okay, we've turned the page and now these actors are not going to play Bond anymore, and this is the new, which is kind of what it becomes. But I didn't realize it jumped around as much back in the 70s, early 70s.
Well, I mean, you can immediately throw any sort of problems with the franchise at the fact that they're sending these mixed signals, if you will, to the audience. He's James Bond. No, we're back to James. No, this is another James Bond. It's, to your point, it's going to cause whiplash, because what if they had changed, Tristan, you referenced the Marvel movies before. What if they had changed Captain America 2 or 3 times during the run of those movies? You'd be like, what? Who's doing this now? What's going on? The Hulk, you can change willy-nilly. You can change that guy 3 times in 10 years. No big deal. But like, you get your marquee character. I think that what's interesting is the more whimsical stuff with Moore. He's obviously more comfortable with it. He is obviously that guy. And I think that's why Golden Gun, for whatever problems it might have, very much indicates that when they do course correct, they can look back at this game tape and say, that's the Bond he's going to play. That's the one he needs to play. He cannot play this other Bond.
That's the one we need to write for him.
Right.
Because that's what he will do best. Yeah, no, he does handle. I mean, I could not picture Connery poking around the funhouse mirrored crazy island. Like, but again, you never know.
An episode of The Prisoner.
Yeah.
Yes. But oddly enough, based on an idea that Hamilton had to put Bond at Disneyland. And that's why it winds up in a funhouse, they repurpose the idea.
That would have been interesting.
Wouldn't it? I really doubt that Disney
interesting is a word.
Agree to that.
Yeah.
Oh, but now see, Tristan, obviously you have your issues with the funhouse. So I want to go into that, because we're at the funhouse. It's the first environment we basically get introduced to is that funhouse. And we see that there is a real person pretending to be a wax figure of Bond.
There's a couple people trying to be wax figures.
Well, a blinking Al Capone throws you off a little bit later too.
When I first watched that, I was just like, wait, are we? What are we doing here? Like, is he drugged?
Right.
Like what?
Right. Sorry, Al. Don't hold it against me. Although the cowboy one that looks like Bond is actually more stunt double in the cowboy hat and fake mustache. But Tristan, you've been dropping hints left and right here. The funhouse doesn't work for you at all? Or is it something where it almost works and it's frustrating that it doesn't work as well as you think it should?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have an inherent dislike for the funhouse. And when I said I was like interesting as a word, it was mainly a comment on Bond being at Disneyland. I think that would have been really odd and out of place.
And especially if, like, are you going to see Scaramanga smuggle his gun into Disneyland? Like, that's not going to fly. That's not.
It's. I mean, I could totally see him smuggling it on a plane, but Disney World, no. So, but no, with the Funhouse, it was interesting, but at the same time a little jarring, because normally we'd see Bond in the open.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is the first time that we don't see Bond in the open. Well, I mean, we see wax figure, not wax figure of Bond, but you know what I mean, the character of Bond.
Yes.
And so you're like, okay, well, we must be really focusing on the bad guy. Maybe we're going to see a lot more of the bad guy in this film. And it was way too long. And I think that was one of the issues with it was way too long. I was fine with the way that they were doing it. But then when we get to the Funhouse Part 2, I'm like, oh, it's just as long. And we're going through the exact same motions, the exact same actions, the exact same atmospheres. It would have been way more interesting if when Bond went to the Funhouse, he took a left instead of a right. And so we got some different environments.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a fair criticism.
I think that's my main thing is that like, oh, we're just doing this again. I mean, we've already done this. We've already seen this. And I know the entire reason why they're doing that is so that they can prop up him pretending to be a wax figure so that he can get that final blow, which was in itself very underwhelming.
Now, speaking of doing things again, we've already made reference to the beloved J.W. Pepper. May he forever live in our memories and hearts. But Darren, I think you said something interesting when we started talking about that earlier of, let's say, because this is before video home sales, this is before video rental, all of that sort of stuff. If you didn't see it in the movie theater previously, good luck. You might be lost at certain points. Bringing Pepper back, how do you fix it? You're the director. The script comes to you. J.W. Pepper's in it. You have a certain amount of control.
You're being
here.
a terrible producer, John. You're saying I, the director, have to include this character into this movie.
Yes, producers have never been known to do that.
Gosh.
Never in the history of film have producers forced people to include things they didn't want to include. But your back's against the wall. Pepper's coming back. What are you going to do with him? How would you change it to make it work?
It's really hard. There's
right.
Like
See, isn't that much tougher than just ragging on the stuff?
No, I
right?
was trying to think of like, you know, the other buddy cop movies that just do better. And he's like none of that. So it's really hard to, I mean, maybe
I would like a moment. If I could jump in.
Yeah, go for it.
Please.
Take the ball.
I think the only way to improve this is to not make him so gung-ho about it. Like, don't make him an idiot. Don't make him gung-ho about it. Don't make him a racist. Make him a fish out of water.
Yeah.
And
like
I think that
he keeps popping up in random places, like almost like a through line. Like, oh, he happened to be here. And then Bond ruined his day. Like, Bond is ruining his vacation. That could be a funny through line gag. But yeah,
absolutely. But like him in the car, like with the chaw in his mouth and just like constantly saying like he's like I'm with you, you know, like we're gonna do this, and just like pulling out his wallet and like saying that like, you know, he knows what's up
PD
because
or whatever,
because he's a police. It's just it's not funny. It doesn't work. It's just awkward and cringy but if you made him like the dude in Speed, where Keanu Reeves commandeered his car and he starts freaking out because he's going so fast, and you know he doesn't want him to wreck his car and go crazy, things like that. If that kind of thing happened,
right,
I think that would have been way funnier.
I agree. It also would have made it possible for you to contextualize the character if you hadn't seen Live and Let Die as just some dumb American hick who happened to be vacationing there.
Which is such a fresh take in film.
Yes.
To see the dumb American.
Absolutely.
But like,
absolutely.
I didn't think about, like, I haven't seen Live and Let Die in a very, very long time. And when we had that close up of him and he's looking at Bond, I'm like, what is happening here?
Yeah,
what is
I
going
have the same
on?
feeling. I'm like, does he recognize him? Is he? Because I didn't have that context.
I don't know how you could ever forget the beloved J.W. Pepper. May he forever be in our hearts and minds. But I think that I remember the first time I saw Golden Gun and I saw Pepper, and my reaction was to audibly say, "Oh no, because Sean Eastridge, another host here on the Nerd Party Network, who of course was my spirit guide through the world of Bond, didn't let me know. And he purposely didn't let me know because he wanted my unvarnished reaction to seeing Pepper again, because he knew how much I hated the Pepper character in Live and Let Die in the first place. And it's such a fascinating character to have brought him back. And all of these things that we're talking about, it's frustrating to me because I love Christopher Lee as a bad guy. I love him as an actor. He brings so much. Just walking on screen, he knows how to exude that energy of, oh no, this guy will actually harm me. You believe he was, by all accounts, one of the nicest people on the face of the planet through his life. But he knew how to carry himself with that air that would make you immediately fearful. And so we're sitting here talking about all of these problems, yet somehow Scaramanga is a beloved Bond villain. Tristan, do you attribute that simply to Christopher Lee being himself and saying, I don't care whether Guy Hamilton knows what he's doing, I'm going to do my thing and it's going to work? Or do you think that Hamilton has anything to do with the success of his character?
I think because he's so beloved is because it's Lee. I think that's the only reason, because if you put any other actor in this, or even an unknown actor or someone who doesn't have the gravitas that Lee has, I mean, not even Lee could make the Dime tour interesting. Like when he shows Bond around his island, it grinds the film to a halt. Just pumps the brakes until they lock up. And like this is a beautiful island with a lot of really fun toys, and I'm bored to tears. I'm absolutely bored, and Roger Moore looks bored. And it just, I think that is definitely a director issue. That's a director and editor issue. And this should have been changed. This should have been rewritten. There should have been way more. There should have been drama. There should have been more interesting things. I don't know. But if Lee is an iconic Bond villain, which he is, and he couldn't even make that scene interesting, then, I mean, and hearkening back to the formula, where right off the bat in the first Bond film, the first Eon Bond film, Dr. No, that's interesting. The way that it's presented is interesting and diabolical. This isn't diabolical. It just feels like a super rich dude who's just like, do you see this? It's cool.
I think it's very interesting that you draw the comparison to Dr. No, because Christopher Lee, they wanted him for Dr. No. And for one reason or another, it doesn't work out. The usual sort of song and dance about the precise reasons and everything, but how fascinating would it have been to have him be Dr. No? Like, I can't help now but watch Dr. No and think to myself, what would this be if Lee were sitting in that chair in that Nehru jacket? Dr. No becomes flat out terrifying in that circumstance.
It would have been better.
Yeah, and I like what you're saying though, Tristan, about that pacing, and it makes me think of, I have two thoughts on it. One is, again, looking back at Goldfinger, we have the same kind of thing where he's actually talking to Goldfinger and you see Bond figure it out and has the admiration. We don't have any of that in this picture. And I was trying to think, okay, how could you present Bond being in Scaramanga's Island in an interesting way? And it made me think, what if you'd have to change the sets a little bit, but what if you had made it where you have all these kind of secret passageways that Knick-Knack uses to get around, but they're all super cramped for Bond. So Bond has snuck his way onto the island. He's not he lands, but he's not like invited on a silver platter, but he sneaks in and he's literally crawling through the Knick-Knack tunnels for at least part of it. So he is seeing, the solar generator plant and this and that, and you play a little bit of ominous music, and it's actually tension because he could get caught instead of what we get, which is the tour.
Yes, the tour. And I think that there is also there is a question, I think, after a certain point, that a director who is involved in a franchise can sometimes get fatigued with it. And I'll put this question to either one of you that wants to answer it first. Do you think that this film suffers from the fact that Hamilton is just tired of it? Not where he's throwing his hands up and saying, I don't even know what to do anymore, but it's become so routine for him that he's just too close to it. He can't see the problems anymore. Because obviously again, to go back to Goldfinger, he suggests changes. He makes improvements. He makes it more cinematic. He actually makes things work better. Whereas with this one, all we seem to be focusing on is what doesn't work as well. So do you think
some of the most iconic stuff in Goldfinger was because of him, specifically because of his actions, his direct actions and ideas? But with this one, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like no. To answer your question, it feels like a color by numbers. Like it feels like he's going through the motions. He feels like what's the word? Like you use this phrase, like it's a company director or what they needed for return. Yeah, like what they wanted for Return of the Jedi. What Lucas wanted.
Just a workman, like somebody that just collects right. There is that sense, I think, somewhat here. I think, though, that it has to be acknowledged that Broccoli and Saltzman, basically their relationship sours during the production of this film. And Saltzman sells his stake in the parent company of Eon. After this, he's done. He just walks away. Now, the Bond franchise is inarguably a tremendous success. And you can only imagine what the behind the scenes nonsense was for somebody who owns essentially half of that to say, screw it, I'm out. I can't even do this anymore.
9 movies in.
Right.
Like it's gone on so much since then.
And this series up to this point has basically been a license to print money. You can only imagine what it was like for somebody to just walk away at that point and say, screw it, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. Is that possibly what undoes this film? Darren, this is something where, is that what undoes Hamilton? Because he doesn't have that necessary producer sounding board, and they're too preoccupied with their behind the scenes strife to give him the right guardrails and say, the car stunt we paid for, you're going to include the car stunt. You don't want Pepper in it? Okay, that's fine. Let's cut him. That sort of thing. And instead, it's just a director without the appropriate amount of positive interaction with the producers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, hopefully there's a book somewhere that just is like the long lost tale of producing James Bond and the hell it was or whatever, because that'd be an interesting read, because I'm sure it was a wild ride. Yeah, I think it just comes to a whole of Bond, the franchise, everything is this really unique chapter of film history. Like, you have this long running series based off of books with main actors that change. Like, we don't even blink at it now, but like, that's still I'm sure it was more of an interesting thing in the 60s of like, oh, we're going to change the actor and we're going to keep it going as if nothing happened. Like that, like other films, even nowadays, can't pull that off. And so I'm sure it was a crazy blend of money and budgets and time and actors and directors and, formulas and off formulas. And but it's a fun ride. We love being on this ride and being like, oh yeah, this one wasn't as good, or oh, this one was great, or oh, look at this cool aspect of this, or this one was too many gadgets, or oh, there's no gadgets now. It's just over and over. But it's so fun to just, because there's nothing else like it. There's nothing else like the Bond franchise. And I don't think there ever will be again, because of the placement in the 60s and the 70s and those eras of film and the differences of how it came together. So all that to say, I think, yeah, there's got to be an interesting story to what, makes a producer sell 50% of their stake in this company and walk away. But it wasn't the death knell, and I'm glad it wasn't, because that would have been a sad note to end Bond on in 74. Because, I mean, we're not even a third into the current run at that point of what we've experienced now by 22. So I think that answered the original question. But I just wanted to say that about Bond. I think that's a really interesting aspect of that, which we didn't really kind of cover in the beginning of this wing. But to me, that's what Bond is this amazing, kind of almost can't believe it happened and worked for as much as it did kind of a franchise.
Tristan, just as a question to you, do you think that it's possible that what we're seeing, sort of these hiccups here, are also due, or even primarily due, to the fact that Bond is, as a franchise, losing its way from being a leader in the setting the tone for the genre, setting the expectations for this type of film, into being something of a follower? And what I mean by that is, if you look at Live and Let Die, there are obvious influences on it from the exploitation films that are starting to bubble up at that point, the difference in the audience and those sorts of things. And instead of being in the driver's seat, we're seeing Bond being one of the passengers on this crazy drive. To try to better illustrate my point, are we at a point with the Bond franchise that we see happen with a franchise I also love, the Halloween series, where even just by the time Halloween 2 comes out, so many imitators and the genre itself had exploded to the point that by the time Halloween 2 comes out, you can tell they're trying to figure out where they fit in this. They're no longer leading. They're just trying to reestablish their dominance, as it were. Do you think that this is something Bond is struggling with at this point?
At this point, I'm not quite sure. I didn't get that sense while watching it. I definitely got that sense while watching Moonraker. But with this particular film.
Well, here in Golden Gun, we have a martial arts fight that is simply because
that's true.
The martial arts craze is starting to take off. So, okay, we'll throw that in there. We have a crazy car stunt because they saw a car stunt. Car stunts are getting really cool. Car shows are getting really cool. Okay, let's have a car stunt in there. And so there's a little bit more
kind
of that
of
flavor
Bond by committee, almost.
Right. I saw a cool thing. Let's have that happen.
I think I didn't think of that while watching it. But I'm very much separate from the time that this was made. And I think you guys have a much better sense of that than I do. Not because you were there or anything like that, but like Darren, I think you nailed it on the head, is that this is a camel. This is Bond by committee. This is a hodgepodge of things put together with no cohesive story. Because, okay, so is this a mano tale of cat and mouse between Scaramanga and Bond? Kind of. Is this a tale of the energy crisis in the 70s, and we need to make sure that we bring solar power to the people? Kind of. Is this a tale of a woman who's under the thumb of a villain, and the only way that she can get out is with the help of the suavest British agent? Kind of. It's so many kind ofs that none of it is definite. And if you have nothing that's definite, then you have no through line. And so you just have a collection of scenes. You don't have a movie, you have a collection of moments. And these moments are not greater than the sum of its parts. And I think that's the issue. So like, that's how I see the issue. And you guys have a little bit more insight where like the only reason why the martial arts scene is in there is because martial arts was cool. And same with what you said about the car stunts and everything like that. It's definitely a time when they're struggling to figure out what's going on. Also, it came out in 1974. We're at the tail end of the Vietnam War. People are exhausted. People, like people want it's weird. The 1970s were weird because people want levity and escapism, but at the same time you see people like Scorsese bringing out just really ultra violent stuff because of the influence of the cultural aspects of the Vietnam War. And so this is a weird time for movies.
Well, I mean, you're also getting, we had House of Coppola. You're also getting in 1974, you're getting both The Conversation and The Godfather Part 2, which are incredible works of art and also incredible expressions of cynicism about things. And Bond is representative of the idea of, we talked about this in Goldfinger, the idea of competent people with good hearts who might not always be great people personally, but their heart's in the right place. They're trying to save the world, sort of thing. And they're incredibly good at their job, and they're smart, and you can rest at night because these people are in charge and they've got their hand on the wheel. Whereas, you have the Godfather films and it's like, yeah, the people that have the hand on the wheel are all a-holes and you can't trust them and you can't like them and that sort of thing. And so Bond doesn't fit in the world view overall. And I would argue he doesn't again until things start to turn around. And that's why I think The Spy Who Loved Me comes out at the perfect time. It's actually, I think, very good that this had its effect on the franchise that it did, because it forced them to think again and say, okay, all right, how are people now? How do we make this work again? How do we give them what it is that they're looking for? But in terms of the way things work, and it's all something that we all love to talk about, but the score for this film, John Barry himself has said that he didn't particularly care for what he did and how he did it in The Man with the Golden Gun. And they actually have a couple of different things that they've done with the music and the sound on different releases through the years. Darren, is this just another Bond score? Do you think that this is an underappreciated Bond score, or do you think that this is just John Barry getting a check?
It's definitely not the best Bond score I've heard. I mean, it uses the motif well. I think The Man with the Golden Gun, like they use it, with strings, and it's, in the background. But that's Scaramanga's theme. Like really, like that's the bad guys. Thinking again of Goldfinger. Like when we hear those notes, we're thinking of him. We're not thinking of Bond. It's the title of the movie. Yeah, it was nothing special. I can't really recall too much about it that like leaped out at me. So to hear that the composer was like, yeah, it was a thing that it did is not surprising. But
well, I'm glad you
slide
said that.
Whistle though. That
Guy Hamilton on record said he regretted doing that.
Such a bad.
The reason
I
Hamilton
think that
did
really brought it to the score. I think that's what really tied the whole movie thematically, orchestrally together.
But Hamilton actually said that the reason he did that is because he thought nobody would buy the stunt. And so he did the slide whistle as a way to sort of lean into that and say, hey, isn't this zany? And he later said he wished he'd never done it. He acknowledged it as a mistake. And I would argue again that that's obvious sign of strife behind the scenes, because any good producer would have seen that and heard that slide whistle and said, oh, no.
What are you doing?
That's not going to happen here. No, thank you. I do think, Darren, what you're saying about how it's Scaramanga's theme that's dominant. As I sit here and I sort of play it back through in my brain, Bond movies, one of the great moments in any Bond movie is when that iconic theme kicks up and you're like, yeah. The man's on the scene.
Like a chase usually, or something where it's like, ba-da, ba-da, and then you're like, oh yeah, here we go.
Tristan, sitting here right now, we all just watched the film. Can you even recall a moment where the Bond theme was used to great effect in this film?
Nope.
That really is a shortcoming, isn't it?
Yeah. It says it right there. What else do you need to say?
I can't expound. I can't really tell you.
I mean, put it where the slide whistle is. Of all the places to put it in the awesome stunt.
Da 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 da.
It's 10 times better.
Yep, you're absolutely right.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. Yeah, and the thing is that gets to that whole idea of how a score, when it's right, it elevates the work from a really, a good entertainment or a decent time to Star Wars or Jaws or I don't want to go down the road of continually citing John Williams.
I was just say, I'm sensing a theme.
Well, it's the 70s, we're all that sort of thing.
And Harry Potter, Jurassic. Oh,
yeah, right. Well, no, let's use one like E.T. Wait, no, okay.
Oh,
okay,
wait,
yeah. Well, anyway, I feel like we've been a bit rough on it. We have acknowledged that Christopher Lee's great as Scaramanga, but Tristan, I'll kick it to you first before we get to our ratings. Is there anything from this film that you latch onto and you say, that is a terrific James Bond moment. That is a terrific thing. This is why this film should remain in the pack when I recommend this to people, that I should point people to at least this scene in this James Bond film. Is there anything that jumps out with you?
Well, I think there's two moments really that solidify this on the edifice of James Bond and the legacy. It's when Roger Moore is upside down and he grabs the sumo wrestler's ass with both hands. I think that's something that really they should have put on the cover, honestly. Like, that should have been the cover of the film. And more seriously, when Goodnight's ass caused the problem with the solar laser. I think those are really the two moments that I'm really surprised that we don't harken back to, even with like Daniel Craig Bond. I mean, why haven't we seen that? Like, what, we hear the theme a lot. We could call that reductive, but why aren't we getting the sumo wrestler ass grabbing and nut crunching? I think is really the travesty of current Bond, and I hope that they fix it with the next one.
I really think that your fixation on buttocks is always curious to me. But Darren, same question to you.
One thing that I wanted to mention as one of my favorite parts of the movie is the tilted set on the RMS Queen Mary is very clever, very original, very like, and I had to look it up because, again, history. I didn't know that actually it literally was there. The Queen Mary had been sold, and I think a fire happened and it ended up capsizing, to a degree there. So obviously, they didn't shoot in the actual Queen Mary. They built a set, but I love that, we'll just use that as our base and we'll just cut away the floor and install like a tilted floor. And it was just, every moment in that set was fun because that was, it's like, oh, we're in a Bond movie. Oh, there's Q. And there's, this is the kind of place I expect Bond to have his debriefing in the middle of the bay in a 42 degree, tilted ship. So that was fun. I really liked that part. But yeah, I think I'll just save my rest of my feelings for Final Jeopardy.
Okay, fair enough. We've already cited the scene where Christopher Lee is putting the gun together. I love that scene. I agree with you. The ship, that is a very Bond environment. That's okay, cool. This is that clever thing where you sit there and you say, your rational mind says, this is nuts. But the mind that is enjoying Bond is saying, this is very cool. I dig this. I want to be here. I think that there are aspects to the car chase if there had been more judicious editing. That's a good car chase struggling to get out of a rough editing job, trying to get out of there.
The boat chase was better. I
Yes.
like the boat chase more.
Yes, I do like Nick Nack for the most part, because of the fact that Nick Nack is a jerk to Scaramanga. I love the fact that they lean into the idea that he isn't giving Scaramanga an easy time, that he's screwing with him the first time we see him in the funhouse, and he's laughing and he's like, "Oh, can you find? Oh, nope, that would have been too easy." Ha 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 ha. Like, I like that. I think that is exactly that type of dysfunctional villain henchman relationship that I enjoy, because it always makes you sit there and say, why doesn't Scaramanga just shoot him when he gets out of this? It's like, listen, punk, why do you think you're working such a nice job? It's me. I do think that the assassination of Macau works well. I thought that was pretty clever in the way that they tied it together, and that Scaramanga didn't shoot him on purpose. Scaramanga had Bond dead to rights and chose not to kill him, which is kind of idiotic because he could have collected 2 bounties at that point. But at the same time, it's a power move from Scaramanga. I like that. So there are aspects of this that interesting.
I find that interesting that you bring that up, because that's always a theme within James Bond films of why don't they just shoot him? Like, why on earth would they go through this whole song and dance when they could just shoot him and be done with it?
You caught me monologuing.
Yeah.
But this movie, I think, is the epitome of good timing and the bad guy choosing not to kill Bond at every single step of the way. Like, there's no legitimately good reason to not kill Bond other than to have that moment at the end, like to have that shootout, to have the duel. So I guess I'm answering my own question, which they established right at the beginning that Scaremonger likes that stuff and he wants to have the duel with it. So I retract my statement.
No, but you're a healthy time for us.
Well, and I thought it was established later that Scaremonger's mistress was the one who put, like, there isn't actually a hit out on Bond. She's the one who sent the bullet to him. So I don't think Scaremonger has a contract to kill Bond. Or no, wait, never mind. The gangster guy put one on him. I don't know. It's slightly confusing.
Well, this speaks
the fact
in
that
and of
we
itself
don't know,
right?
Yeah, is bad.
Right, that we're not
the fact that we can't figure that out.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And they will give Maude Adams another crack at being in a Bond film with Octopussy in the 1980s, a film which we will not be watching for this series. However, we did watch The Man with the Golden Gun, and I am just sitting here curious as to where our ratings will fall. And Darren, you said that you needed this soapbox. You want this soapbox to talk about The Man with the Golden Gun. As a maker who admires Scaramanga's gun,
I do. That's
where
what I want to talk about.
On the scale of 1 to 5 golden guns, where do you rank The Man with the Golden Gun?
So first, I kind of came up with a different beginning of the movie, because we were talking about, like, why are we spending all this time, with Scaramonger and all of this? I think it would be interesting. We lean into, it's the man with the golden gun. Nobody knows who he is. He could be anybody. And so we don't have Bond having this huge dossier in his mind. He's like, no, he's a top assassin, one shot, one kill, $1 million. That's all we know. We don't know what he looks like, where he is, or anything. And so we see, and obviously we know the movie poster, we know it's Christopher Lee, but we don't present that to the audience. And we see people, and so the first kill, we don't start on the island, we don't see any of that. I want us to just be out in a place, and it just falls into our lap where, oh, that guy who was just walking there, that's the man with the golden gun. We see him put his gun together behind the security lines, or some, again, maybe lean into the airport thing again.
And so we lean into the man with the golden gun could be anybody. And because he has these innocuous items on him that don't scream, I'm an assassin. And then but in his hands, it becomes this tool of death that he can kill you. You're not safe anywhere. I think that would have been a really interesting start versus we're literally going to start with who he is and where he is and what he can do. And which again is a choice, but I think that would have been a much more interesting thing and added a lot of dramatic tension on the fact that this is a world where no one knows who the man with the golden gun is, but he's infamous. But he could be anywhere, and you're not safe behind your security walls or in your compounds because he's got a cigarette case and a pen. All that to say, it's a guilty pleasure film. I enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. It is definitely no Goldfinger. It has the word gold in the name. That's about where the similarities seem to start and end. So I'm going to give The Man with the Golden Gun 3 golden bullets.
And Tristan, on a scale of, I like golden bullets, on a scale of 1 to 5 golden bullets, where do you land with The Man with the Golden Gun?
I don't think I've been hiding it well on how I view this film in the annals of history. I said at the top of the show that I don't like Roger Moore as James Bond. And like when you said, like, what are 2 things that you think, or like, what's something that really, really, like stands out as great James Bond? I gave 2 facetious answers because I can't give you a straight one. There's so much wrong about this movie. It just doesn't work. This movie does not work. And it's a shame that this was Guy Hamilton. Like, it kind of just shows how far he fell in this. And also, I mean, with all the production issues and with the producers in the background, everything like that. And I know it wasn't easy on him, but this, you'd hope that they'd be able to salvage something more than this. I don't want to repeat myself because I've already explained what I think and why I think it. And so I'm going to be generous and give it 2 gold bullets.
You consider that generous, you monster. Although I do acknowledge all of the problems with the film. I do. I, however, fall closer to Darren's end of things, specifically because I think that Christopher Lee is terrific as Scaramanga. He's better than this film deserves. And as a result, I enjoy watching it simply because I enjoy watching him, which is unfortunate because Roger Moore, this is not him. This is not who Roger Moore is as Bond. Either in Live and Let Die, which is the one film before, but then I project forward into one of my favorite Bond films, which comes next, The Spy Who Loved Me. I adore that film. That's Roger Moore. That when I think of Roger Moore, that's it. That is the prime example of the best Bond that Roger Moore can be. And it's weird watching him in this because you see that Bond wanting to get out. Roger Moore can't hide him, but the script doesn't want him. And so there's that sort of odd conflict there with it. I also think that while this points the direction toward the freaky super weapon angle that Bond villains are going to go forward with from now on, it's not irradiating gold. It's not controlling the drug trade. It's super laser territory. That's a whole escalation right there. That is, you're taking it, up a notch, as Emerald might say. And so I wind up giving this 3 golden bullets. I just enjoy Christopher Lee so much. And there are certain things I do enjoy. So that's where I end up with it. There are days where I want to give it actually a 3.5 because there are certain points that I really enjoy, but I'm going to give it a 3. And that's where I land. We'd love to hear where you land. Go to thenerdparty.com/contact. Let us know. And tune in next week as we continue navigating the wing of Bond. And we go into a film directed by John Glenn, not the astronaut, For Your Eyes Only from 1981.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.